Welcome back. You are listening to the home of forbidden romances. Prepare yourself, because tonight's story will leave you breathless. The elevator doors were closing, slicing away the safety of the lobby, and I knew, with the terrifying clarity of a man stepping off a cliff, that I had just made a fatal calculation. I didn't just step into an elevator. I stepped into a lion's den, the air inside already thick enough to choke on, reeking of ozone, chilled steel, and the overwhelming, predatory scent of burnt sandalwood. My finger hovered over the button for the penthouse, trembling, but it was too late to back out. In the corner of the mirrored box, shrouded in the shadows of the sleek, gold-paneled interior, stood a figure that made the air conditioning feel like a blizzard. He wasn't supposed to be here. The schedule I had spent 3 months hacking said he was in Tokyo. But Cashin Riker, the CEO of Riker Heavy Industries, and the most feared alpha in the chaotic sprawl of New Seoul, was not in Tokyo. He was 3 feet away from me, his eyes glowing with a feral, violet luminescence that screamed of a rut suppressed for too long, and he was looking at me like I was the last drop of water in a desert. "You," Cashin rasped, his voice a low grind of gravel against velvet, vibrating in my chest. "You smell like ruin." Chapter 1. The Calculated Risk. My name is Julian Vane, and until 10 seconds ago, I was the invisible beta secretary in the logistics department. Or at least, that was the lie on my ID badge. In reality, I was a desperate omega drowning in debt, my suppressants failing, attempting the most idiotic corporate heist in the history of this city to pay for my sister's surgery. The plan was simple. Use the CEO's private elevator during his scheduled absence to bypass the retinal scanners on the lower floors, reach the server room on the 50th floor, upload the virus, and disappear before the security grid rebooted. I had timed it to the second. I had the code. I had the keycard. I did not have a plan for a 6'3" prime alpha in the middle of a biological meltdown. I pressed my back against the cold metal wall, my knuckles white as I clutched my tablet. "Mr. Riker," I managed, my voice steady despite the alarm bells deafening my mind. "I apologize. The main lifts were down. I have urgent documents for the VP." It was a flimsy lie. A beta employee using the alpha's lift was grounds for immediate termination. An omega doing it was grounds for something much darker. Cashin didn't blink. He pushed off the wall, his movement fluid and terrifyingly fast. He was wearing a bespoke charcoal suit that strained at the shoulders, his tie loosened, the top buttons of his shirt torn away to reveal the damp, flushed skin of his throat. Sweat beaded at his hairline, dampening strands of ink-black hair that fell over eyes burning with delirium. "Liar," he hissed, stepping into my personal space. The scent of him, sandalwood, rain, and raw power, hit me like a physical blow. My knees buckled. My own pheromones, carefully masked by illegal suppressants for years, spiked in response to his dominance. The elevator hummed, rocketing upward, sealing us in this golden cage. "I don't know what you mean, sir," I lied, looking for the emergency stop button. "Please step back." "My security," said the elevator was empty, Cashin muttered, his logic fracturing under the weight of his biology. He braced a hand against the wall beside my head, trapping me. His breathing was ragged. "Why aren't you empty? Why are you loud?" He wasn't talking about sound. He was talking about scent. My suppressants were dissolving under the pressure of his aura. "Sir, you are unwell," I said, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. "Let me call for a medic." "No medics," he growled, leaning down. His nose grazed the sensitive skin of my neck, right over my scent gland. A jolt of electricity arced down my spine, so intense my vision blurred. "They tried to drug me. Tried to bind me to that heiress. But I smell." He inhaled deeply, a shudder racking his massive frame. "I smell the truth." Chapter 2. The Delirium. The elevator chimed. Floor 40. 10 floors to go. I tried to shove him away. It was like shoving a statue. "Mr. Riker moved." He caught my wrists. His grip was bruising, absolute. He wasn't hurting me, not intentionally, but the disparity in our strength was laughable. He pinned my hands above my head with one hand, his other hand gripping my waist, pulling me flush against him. The heat radiating off him was scorching. This wasn't just a rut. This was a chemically induced frenzy. Someone had dosed him with afro, 9. A black market stimulant designed to force alphas into immediate bonding. If he didn't mate, his heart would give out within the hour. And I was the only omega in the room. Let me go, I pleaded, the panic finally bleeding into my voice. I am not who you think I am. I'm nobody. Cashin pulled back slightly, his violet eyes trying to focus on my face. He looked confused, tortured. The drug was warring with his iron will. Nobody, he whispered. No, you are. His pupils blew wide, swallowing the violet. The scent of my fear mixed with the underlying sweetness of my omega essence, something like vanilla and night-blooming jasmine, finally broke through his haze. To a drugged alpha, that specific combination didn't signal intruder. It signaled salvation. Wife, he breathed. The word hung in the air, heavy and absurd. What? I choked out. Wife, he repeated, with a terrifying conviction. He buried his face in the crook of my neck. Found you. Finally. It was madness. We were strangers. I was a corporate spy. He was the target. But the drug in his veins was rewriting his reality, latching onto the first compatible biology it found and overriding logic with instinct. To him, in this moment of chemical agony, I wasn't Julian the spy. I was the anchor preventing him from drifting into the void. Chapter 3. The Penthouse Cage. The elevator doors slid open at the penthouse. I expected security guards, guns, chaos. Instead, the expansive luxury of the top floor was empty. The floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the neon-drenched skyline of the city, rain lashing against the glass. Walk, Cashin commanded, his voice strained. He didn't drag me. He steered me, his arm possessively around my waist, keeping me glued to his side. Cashin, listen to me. I tried, using his first name, hoping to shock him into clarity. You have been drugged. You are hallucinating. I am an employee. I am a man. My wife is a man, he slurred, stumbling slightly as he kicked open the double doors to his private quarters. He was improvising, his brain frantically patching holes in the narrative to justify his obsession. Don't argue. He collapsed onto the massive leather sofa in the center of the room, dragging me down with him. I landed on top of him, my hands against his chest. His heart was beating so fast it was a blur. I need to call help, I insisted, reaching for the phone on the side table. His hand shot out, shattering the phone with a single squeeze. No help. Just you. He looked at me then, really looked at me. The violet glow was dimming, replaced by a dark, abyssal hunger. It hurts, he admitted, a rare moment of vulnerability from the untouchable titan of industry. It feels like burning. Make it stop. I froze. I knew what he needed. He needed pheromone transfer. He needed a bite. But a bite meant a bond, and a bond meant I belonged to him legally and biologically. It would ruin my life. But if I didn't, he would die right here, under me. And then I'd be the spy who murdered Cashin Riker. I can't bond with you, I whispered, my voice trembling. Not a bond, he gasped, his eyes rolling back slightly. Just scent. Please. It was the please that broke me. I lowered myself slowly. Just scent, I warned, though I knew I was playing with fire. If you bite me, Cashin, I will destroy you. He let out a low, guttural laugh, his hands coming up to cradle my face. Fair. I bared my neck. He surged forward, burying his nose against the gland, inhaling frantically. He didn't bite. He just breathed me in, rubbing his cheek against mine, soothing the chemical fire in his blood with my essence. It was intimate, far too intimate for enemies, far too tender for strangers. Minutes passed. The storm outside raged, but inside, the breathing slowed. His grip on me loosened from iron to a heavy embrace. Julian, he murmured. I stiffened. How do you know my name? Badge, he mumbled against my skin. And I never forget. A thief. My blood ran cold. He knew. Even through the delirium, the alpha knew I was stealing from him. Then why? I asked, my voice barely audible. Why call me wife? Why let me live? He pulled back, his eyes clearer now, though still heavy with exhaustion. The violet was gone, replaced by a piercing, slate gray. The drug had passed its peak, neutralized by my presence. Because, Julian, he said, his thumb tracing the line of my jaw, my enemies are watching the cameras. If you are a thief, you go to prison. If you are my secret fiancé, my wife, who came to comfort me during a medical episode. He gestured vaguely to the destroyed phone. Then you are untouchable. And so am I. It was a lie. Or was it? It was a tactical maneuver. He was using me as a shield against the scandal of his vulnerability. If the board knew he was drugged and weak, his stock would crash. If he was simply passionate, with a lover, he was strong. You're using me, I accused. We're using each other, he corrected, his gaze sharpening. You want something from my server. I want to survive the night without my board of directors voting me out for incompetence. Be my wife for the cameras, Julian. And I'll give you whatever you came to steal. Chapter 4, the morning after. I woke up in a bed that cost more than my childhood home. The sheets were silk, the pillows down. I was alone. Panic surged. I scrambled out of bed, checking my body. Fully clothed. No bite mark. I walked out into the living area. The mess from last night had been cleaned. Cashin stood by the window, immaculate in a fresh suit, sipping coffee. He looked like a god of war, distant, cold, pristine. He turned as I entered. The transfer is complete, he said, holding out a USB drive. The money for your sister's surgery has been wired directly to the hospital. Anonymously, I stared at him, stunned. You check my background. I check everything, he said coolly. He walked over and placed the drive in my hand. His fingers lingered for a second too long, a ghost of last night's desperation. So I can go? I asked, gripping the drive. You can, he said. He turned back to the window. But the press is downstairs. They saw us enter. They saw the embrace in the elevator. As far as the world is concerned, you are my consort. I can deny it. You can, he agreed. But then you're just a thief again. And my security team is very efficient. The threat was veiled, but soft. What do you want, Cashin? He looked at me over his shoulder. The morning light caught the sharp angle of his cheekbone. I have a condition. The doctors can't fix it. The drugs make it worse. Last night was the first time I slept in 5 years. He turned fully, his expression unreadable. I don't need a thief, he said low. I need a stabilizer. Stay? Maintain the charade. In exchange, you get the world. And if I refuse? He stepped closer, the predator returning to his eyes. He leaned down, his voice dropping to that gravelly whisper that made my knees weak. You won't. Because you felt it too. The pull. It wasn't just the drug, Julian. He was right. My omega instincts were screaming at me to stay, to soothe him, to be near him. It was a biological trap, and I had walked right into it. I hate you, I whispered, clutching the drive. Give it time, wife, he smirked, a dangerous, beautiful expression that promised chaos. We have the rest of our lives to argue. He offered me his arm. Now, shall we go facing the wolves? Or do you want to hide in the elevator forever? I looked at his arm. I looked at the drive that saved my sister. I looked at the man who could destroy me with a word, yet chose to bargain. I took his arm. Let's go, I said. But don't expect me to cook. Cashin laughed, a rich, genuine sound that shocked the silence of the room. Deal. And that is how the viper tamed the wolf. If you enjoyed seeing Julian negotiate his way into the heart of a beast, destroy that like button. And tell me in the comments, would you agree to a fake marriage with a dangerous billionaire to save your family, or would you take the money and run? I'll be reading your answers. Subscribe for the next chapter. Until then,